Hello, I'm Deborah Chieli, a nationally board certified nurse practitioner with specialty certification in lifestyle medicine.
And I'm Susie Spell, a nationally board certified nurse practitioner, also certified in lifestyle medicine.
The following interview was part of a series that informed our presentation at the 2023 Annual Conference of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, ACLM, titled Nurses in Action, How Nurses Operationalize Lifestyle Medicine in Modern Settings, and You Can Too.
In this series, nurses from diverse backgrounds and practice settings and their champions tell their personal and professional stories about discovering lifestyle medicine and how they're implementing it across a wide range of settings.
Nurses are the largest health profession in the United States and globally and have been voted the most trusted profession here in the U.S. for over 20 years. Learning about and incorporating the pillars of lifestyle medicine fosters full scope of practice and the ability to answer the call to lead by the National Academy of Medicine with their report, Future of Nursing 2020 to 2030, Charting a Path to Achieve Health Equity.
We hope these stories of success will inspire conversation and drive creative solutions to better address inequities in healthcare. Continued growth of nursing expertise in lifestyle medicine will expedite our nation's ability to address the public health emergency of chronic lifestyle diseases we currently face.
The power of nurses to create innovative solutions when combined with the practice of lifestyle medicine allows nurses to express their full potential while simultaneously addressing the salient issues of health equity, the epidemic of chronic disease, and the provision of truly patient-centered whole-person care.
When nurses are empowered to lead with an interdisciplinary and multi-sector practice, they answer the call of the National Academy of Medicine to dissolve barriers to care and improve health for themselves, the nation, and every global citizen. Enjoy the interview. Today's guest is Dr. Teddie Potter, and she is a superstar in our nursing profession. I cannot wait for you guys to hear more about her. Dr. Potter is a clinical professor within the School of Nursing at the University of Minnesota. She's a doctorally prepared nurse and educator with a focus on leadership, transformative care, equity, diversity, and the intersection of human and planetary health. Dr. Potter is deeply committed to climate change education, including co-founding Health Professionals for a Healthy Climate, membership in the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, and membership on the American Academy of Nursing Environment and Public Health Expert Panel. She's a member of the coordinating committee of Columbia University's Global Consortium on Climate and Health Education, and a fellow in the Institute of the Environment at the University of Minnesota. She chairs Clinicians for Planetary Health, which is the number 4PH, C4PH, and is a member of the steering committee of the Planetary Health Alliance at Harvard. And in 2019, Dr. Potter was appointed the first Director of Planetary Health for the School of Nursing at the University of Minnesota. In addition, she is the executive editor for the Interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies, which is a peer-reviewed, open-access online journal promoting interdisciplinary collaboration as a solution for solving society's grand challenges, of which we have many. She's active in a variety of professional organizations, which include Sigma Theta Tau International Honor Society of Nursing, the Alliance for Nurses for Healthy Environments, and the American Nursing Association, among many others. And she has won many awards, too many for me to list right here. She has a wonderful bio on the University of Minnesota website, so check that out. And clearly, Dr. Potter has had a very distinguished career in nursing, and she was so gracious to accept our invitation for this interview so we can share her work with the larger community within the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and beyond. So thank you, Dr. Potter, for spending this time with us. We really do appreciate you.
It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So what I love to start with is a little bit of an origin story. So if you could tell us about, I know you've had a long career in nursing, but tell us about your career in nursing, and in particular, maybe your origin story of how you got involved or interested in planetary and human health.
Sure. So my origin story is that as a practicing nurse, I have been in many locations. I practiced as an oncology nurse for 3 years in a hospital setting, but then I really wanted to get upstream and out front and figure out how to prevent some of the cancers that I was seeing, which led me into home care and hospice, really getting out in the community and a public health focus. And then I started experiencing young men moving home from New York and Miami and San Francisco with a disease we didn't know about, and that was HIV/AIDS. And I took that on as a specialty and continue to always be on this sort of leading edge of systems change, including starting one of our first palliative care programs and continuing to look at how we change systems as a solution for preventing suffering. I've always been on that edge. When I started to see changes out in nature, I love nature, and I started seeing things around me that were disruptions of the natural patterns, be they migration of birds, when flowers bloomed, when the ice came into Minnesota lakes. And in the early 2000s, I thought something is radically wrong here. This is just our natural patterns are being disrupted. Did a little deeper dive into climate change, and certainly that provided some of the science behind what I was seeing. But in probably about, I would say maybe 5-6 years ago, I began to realize that I wasn't making as fast headway as I had hoped in transforming the system by fighting against something. I wanted to fight for a better future. And so that led me to the whole planetary health movement, which was just starting. It really was launched in 2015 with the Lancet Countdown Rockefeller Foundation publication. And that started the formation of the Planetary Health Alliance. I got in on the ground floor of the Planetary Health Alliance and the work being done in this space. And I haven't looked back. Sometimes people say, are you still a real nurse? Oh my gosh, I'm more a real nurse today than I have ever been. It's just my patients are very big. Instead of working with individuals, I'm working with whole populations and actually the globe and the future generations and what the world will look like for them. So I'm very passionate about the power of nursing to be in this space creating change.
Yes, thank you for that. That's amazing. I've worked in public health myself, and so I know exactly what you're talking about, putting that hat on and really moving this forward. Can you tell us a little bit more about the initiatives you're working on now? You mentioned the Planetary Health Alliance. This really seems it just got started. I know it's not even been quite 10 years. You mentioned 2015. So can you tell us about that or anything else that's getting started?
Certainly. So when I talk about planetary health, I like to acknowledge that it's a very old field in understanding. And the indigenous peoples all over the world understood how to live in right relationship with the land, the air, the water, and not destroy their homes and disrupt what future generations need to survive. It's an ancient way of knowing. It's just really being rediscovered and revalued at this point in time. Planetary health, I'm going to read the definition that we go by because I think it's really quite clear. Planetary health is a solutions-oriented, transdisciplinary field and social movement focused on analyzing and addressing the impacts of human disruptions to Earth's natural systems on human health and the life on the planet. So basically it's looking at what are we doing? What is this? And how do we do a course correction so that we don't return to what we were? We don't go back to normal. We go forward to a better world that works for people.
Yes, that sounds like a very big job.
It is, but you find this network. This is growing like crazy. And so I don't have to do it all. I just need to find other people that are doing this, their piece, and we find each other and we work together to move this forward.
Yes. And in terms of that, how do you do that? One of my questions a little bit further down, but we can do it now. Like, how do we scale this message? How do you get those people, attract those people that want to do this work or are doing this work? What are some key partnerships or relationships that you have or want?
Great. As I said, I'm a systems thinker, and this is my area of how do you transform systems? How do you move things forward? This is my theory space. And so working at the Planetary Health Alliance, we said, look, if we're going to be transdisciplinary, we have to have a shared language. A nurse is going to speak to an agricultural specialist and an engineer. In that circle, we have to have a shared way of communicating. So we developed the Planetary Health Education Framework, which is a framework for all higher education students around the world. It is available on the Planetary Health Alliance website, but we teach 5 core domains. One of them is interconnection within nature. It is not reconnecting humans to nature. It is recognizing and reaffirming that humans are nature. We are the system. We're part of the system. Anything we do to nature, be it cut down trees, pollute water, or mine disrespectfully, we are doing to humans, and it has very serious consequences on human health. That's the foundation of this education. Then understanding the Anthropocene and the human health impacts of the Anthropocene. This is not just some little nice earth pattern or cycle of ice ages and then heating. This is a human-caused issue and problem that is life-threatening and existential. So we have to own up to it. We have to say, we are the problem here, and our behaviors are the problem. And how do we start to do behavior correction? Social equity and justice is fundamental. We cannot come up with solutions that only work for some people. They need to be solutions that work for all people. Systems thinking and complexity. We have been too long fragmented, and we come up with a little solution that works over here and has terrible consequences for other parts of the system. So we need our young people understanding complexity and systems thinking. And finally, it's not enough to just think and know. We've got to move. Movement building and change, systems change. How do you do that? That's the Planetary Health Education Framework. The other key document is the Sao Paulo Declaration on Planetary Health. This was a document that was crowdsourced, individuals working on planetary health around the world, and it is our global shared vision. Okay, what are we building? What's this going to look like? How does the built environment need to change? How does the economic model need to change? How does the healthcare sector need to change? All these systems, what's the globe calling us to do and transform? So it's just lovely. I urge people, no matter what sector you are part of, to go to that and see what's the vision that's pulling all of us forward in this great massive transformation that we need to pull off. In nursing, what we're doing is we are launching, and we launched in July at the Congress of the International Council of Nursing, Nursing for Planetary Health. We took the Planetary Health Education Framework. We said, okay, nurses, how are we going to live this out in our research, our education, our advocacy and policy work, and our practice? And we're on the move creating this. Fortunately, the ICN is working with us to create a position paper so that nursing for planetary health becomes a foundational core structure for how we nurse. It's not going to be nurse specialists, planetary health nurse specialists. It's going to call every single nurse forward to nurse from this ground of understanding.
Wow, that's so powerful. That's a lot. That's a lot of things. And I love the way you are so articulate in outlining every single thing. Clearly, you know exactly what you're talking about. One of the questions that was next was about education. So I was listening to a number of webinars with you and your colleagues, planetary health colleagues. And I heard a woman from the from Minnesota Department of Health. I think her name was Kristen Robb, said that in some of the research that she did, that knowledge was the biggest obstacle in clinicians, any kind of healthcare clinician, being able to use this information even in their clinical work day to day. So it sounds like that the planetary health education framework with the 5 domains is the place to look for this kind of education. Is that correct?
Absolutely. They will expose people to the sort of theory and concepts behind planetary health. Planetary health is not a competency-based piece of literature. We're not having people check boxes. It is a paradigm shift, a worldview shift, so that everything you do, every action you take, everything you think about is done with the future generations in mind. How do we create this world we know is possible and it will work for all people? Addressing, as you said, the social determinants of health, the environmental determinants of health, the commercial determinants of health, which if you haven't heard about, you want to get your hand on the pulse of that and really be aware of how do we create the necessary radical changes in order to have a system that works for everyone?
So what are some ways that you have seen people doing this? Or in particular, of course, nurses is what we're most interested in, but like you said, it's interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. It's going to have to be a paradigm shift. But when we're talking about nurses, whether they're RNs or NPs in a busy hospital, in a primary care clinic, nurse educators, what are some of the ways that we can lead and bring this into our work?
Sure. So nurses work everywhere. So I don't want to forget that they're in schools, they're in public health professions, they're in parish nursing. There's just multiple places that nurses are nursing. And to bring this into their work, it's a way of being, it's a way of embodying this relationship with the earth. So that if you're in the hospital, you question how many products are being used. Is it necessary to generate that much waste? Sit on the procurement committees that purchase these items. And is it necessary to have ones that have tons of plastic wrap and a plastic tray and a plastic devices, plastic cups that we all know get thrown away anyway? Can we be smart consumers in the healthcare space? Can we participate in decarbonizing the U.S. health sector, which is just now rolling out? The U.S. health sector is responsible for 8.5% of our greenhouse gases, and we need to correct that. Being involved in those initiatives, making sure that we're promoting plant-based diets to our patients, to our families, to our communities, advocating for walkable, bikeable cities and mass transit in our cities, and really encouraging people to use mass transit when possible. Investing in renewable energy and promoting renewable energy, continuing to make space and ensure that Indigenous voices are part of the decision-making process, because they, again, knew how to live in right relationship. And it's something that's been lost to many of us. So those are some things that nurses can do.
I love that. So succinctly put across a wide variety of places. And one thing that the lifestyle medicine, we have 6 pillars. We're going to go for a 7th one, hopefully, nature, right? But in the meantime, I think one of the sticking places that we have for nurses is the plant predominant diet, and how we, especially as RNs, as educators, can bring this information to people, and what the scope around that may be. That seems to be a little bit of a sticking spot. So do you have any comments or guidance for us in that?
Everything that we suggest is always science-based. That's part of the planetary health movement. It's evidence-based. We don't just recommend things off the cuff. They're all deeply grounded in best practice and developing science. One of the organizations we regularly tap related to climate change is Project Drawdown, which has science-based solutions that we can be following. And one of their solutions is a plant-based diet, and it's one of the solutions that the Alliance for Nurses for Healthy Environments selected to be part of Nurses Drawdown. What are we urging nurses to do? So again, it's not going full vegetarian or full vegan. We're not saying everybody has to make that step. It's be incremental in thinking about your diet. First of all, just be mindful of your diet. What's going into your mouth? You just be mindful of it. Where did it come from? What resources did it use to get to your plate? How much water does it use? Did it have to be shipped from halfway around the world so you could have your berries during the middle of winter? To just be mindful of the choices we're making. And then as much as possible, start to draw down our meat intake and have a really strong plant-based diet. That's good for our health as well as for the planet, the health of the planet. So that's one of the things we were looking for, is these twofers, that by choosing walkable, bikeable cities and renewable energy, which keep air pollution from impacting our citizens that live especially along corridors, transportation corridors, we can improve the health of the people we care about, our loved ones, by making these choices that also improve the health of the planet. This isn't about giving something up and, we're going to have to live a terrible lifestyle in order to make sure that we have a future. No, we are going to have a very wonderful lifestyle, and probably the choices we make are going to add meaning, depth, value to the lives that we live and improve health.
I love that. So well said. I would like to ask you, it's not on my list, but it just popped in my mind as you were speaking about twofers and ways to do this. Can you tell us about any cities in the US or even across the globe that you think are really doing a nice job with this?
It's a growing movement. So there's little bits and pieces all over the place. I just came from Bend, Oregon, and was fascinated that they have roundabouts instead of traffic lights. That we know that there's still accidents in roundabouts, especially if people aren't used to driving. But you're going so slow that there's not as much loss of life or harm to the individual. Secondly, you're not sitting there idling at a traffic light, so it's good for the environment. That small little shift is transformative in helping human health and health of the environment. I've been keeping my eye on Singapore. They're a very tiny city, state, nation. I shouldn't say tiny, but geographically tiny. And so it's really solid built city. And they're bringing a lot of green space into their city, like every building, not just green rooftops, but it is amazing what they're rethinking. And wildlife is actually coming into their city because now it's a positive environment for wildlife and humans. And so I think they're doing some really exciting things. Certainly California is doing great work. They have had a lot of legislation that has supported the sort of growth of environmental health, healthy choices. Washington State is also making some really nice choices. Don't fly over Minnesota. We're doing great things here in our state as far as educating our people. As a matter of fact, our entire School of Nursing, our entire curriculum is threading planetary health through every level of our curriculum. We didn't want it to be a marginalized honors course or a elective. We wanted every future nurse who graduates from our school and practices to be practicing from a planetary health mindset. So good things are happening here.
Yes, it sounds like it. And I actually was just looking at Singapore for biophilic design. And I think I was watching the new Netflix series about Live to 100. And one of the episodes talks about Singapore in particular. And so I started looking at that, and biophilic design is beautiful. So I know we have to be mindful of time. So I'd like to change over and hand it over to Deborah and let her bring in some info and commentary about future of nursing and the calls to action that we as nurses have heard and want to act on.
Thank you so much, Susie. And it's so wonderful to be here with you, Dr. Potter. May I just circle back as we look at this National Academy of Medicine report, The Future of Nursing, also what it reflects on are a number of the things that you have shared with us. One is this idea of paradigm. Nursing has a paradigm, and the idea of paradigm in that the paradigm of complexity versus reductionist. We see that in terms of the diet. Don't eat the apple, just take a supplement, but it's the whole apple. It's the whole plant, and recognizing that. And also the interconnectedness of everything. And I think this whole story, one of the things Susie and I are trying to do is tell the story through all voices such as yours. And the story that we hear has moved nurses. Like we say, there's so many exciting things and progress in terms of human health. And yet at the same time, nurses are doing amazing things, central lines and all. Yet, what was our story? Florence Nightingale developed the environmental theory, and Florence Nightingale basically said, stop and look. What do you observe? She asked us to just simply observe and use our minds to think. And here we are doing all these things, but in the doing, maybe we have, it's, as you say, it's not about going back, but about going forward. And that is what you are doing. And what is happening in Minnesota is this going forward in nursing to incorporate all of this that involves all of our legacy and history and our theories, and yet for modern times addressing this. So it is so inspiring, moving to hear about all of this. So there's melding all of this together. There's a National Academy Future of Nursing that is now calling the 2020-2030 for nurses to be leading on addressing social determinants of health. And because of all the things we know, the most time at the bedside everywhere and our very theories and paradigm, might we ask you to bring that into the discussion along with all that you're doing to say, are there places where we can leverage all of this, these passionate people working in this realm, in that realm, and also the passionate people in lifestyle medicine to bring all of this together so that 1 + 1 is 20?
Sure. Part of my background is cultural transformation, and cultural transformation is moving from systems of domination and hierarchy to systems of partnership. I would invite you to take a look at that. And I actually wrote a book with Rian Eisler about transforming interprofessional nursing and how we move to that framework where we come as equals to the table. The grand challenges that are facing us are not going to be solved by one discipline alone, but all of us working together and supporting each other and coming up with unified approaches on these systems change. So these are the advantages that nursing brings to the table. And I get invited to these interprofessional tables, and sometimes I think, what am I bringing? And then I listen to everybody, oh, now I know we're bringing the patient. Nobody else has thought about bringing the patient or the communities. And so that's one thing that nurses have got to hold on to. Deep listening to the stories of the people in need, the people that are suffering first and worst, and the frontline and fence line communities on all of these environmental changes. Listening deeply, making sure that their stories are coming forward, ideally making sure that they too have places at the table. Nursing has got to be an advocate for those most in need. We also think differently. If I listen to physician colleagues, just oversimplified, and I have a whole theoretical model on how do we think compared to how they think, theirs is very much doing sort of a history and physical, looking for the ultimate differential diagnosis. You run tests, you rule this out, you roll that out until you get to a differential diagnosis. And that's what you treat, and that's what you care for. Nurses oftentimes start with the differential diagnosis, the person with these experiences, and then we keep asking more questions. So we go further out. We expand. We want to know as much as possible. One is the place that cure occurs and treatment occurs, and the other is where care occurs. And nurses have got to be present and understand we are not supposed to be over there in the pure treatment of disease and illness. We are meant to be out here in the care of the people, and how do we preserve their health, restore their health, renew their health, or help them die a death with dignity. That is who we are and what we do very well. And don't let anybody else make you think differently or feel marginalized or unimportant. When nurses are not present, people are not present.
That is so moving and powerful. Thank you so much for that. May we ask for some insights into how you are able, in addition to all your enormous body of work, how you are able to make such or be a part of such amazing changes as what's happened in Minnesota there, with this being threaded throughout the entire curriculum. Recommendations you would make to us. We're coming from the lifestyle medicine perspective in terms of we're at this conference, but our YouTube videos and channel will live on as an ongoing project to bring more voices. And we're hoping to expand that, just as you've described, to go out and bring everyone in. But you found really some unique places, positions in these organizations at very high levels to have influence as a nurse at the table. Could you help us with, besides we cannot replicate your body of work, but there's a mindset there that you come with and a sense, as you said, it's a sense of being and a way of being that you've described. Can you help us with your way of being and how you approach this as the nurse and as the systems thinker?
I live unapologetically. I don't apologize for nursing. You will never ever hear me say I'm just a nurse. I believe I'm very aware of the problems and the issues we face. So I'm not Pollyanna. I'm not rose-colored glasses. I'm very aware of what we're facing and how extreme it is and how urgent it is. But I'm also deeply aware that nursing holds a huge piece of the solution. So if I knew that I could prevent somebody from dying, would I get out and tell that story? Absolutely. So I just tell that story with a lot of conviction, and I tell it every chance I get. Oh, do you want to know that you should be listening to nurses? For the 22nd year in a row, we're the most trusted profession. According to the Gallup poll, the United States citizens believe nurses. Do you have a nurse on your board? Do you engage nurses in your discussion and your decision making? I'm just out there saying, rethink what a nurse is. Don't just limit us to one specialty area or one practice setting. We are everyone, everywhere. And we are not physician extenders. We are not physician helpers. We are an autonomous profession geared towards preserving life and protecting life and making sure people have as high a quality of life as possible. There you go. That's my pitch.
Thank you so much for that. I know we're getting close. Susie, I want to turn it back over to you also. Thank you, Dr.
That's beautiful. We love that. We love hearing that message. And how do I know, like she said, we're getting towards the end. So I would like to know, maybe you can comment on one of these things. How do we scale this message? How do we make this bigger? How do we run it up the flagpole as nurses who are passionate for this kind of work? What advice would you give a bedside nurse who's first discovering that this even exists, planetary and human health, this connection, and that they can discover lifestyle medicine and how we do make it bigger?
So I'm going to tell a story that I think will resonate with the lifestyle medicine community. And that was, I was down in Cuba and I was watching a nurse do diabetic foot care on a patient. And she asked the standard questions about, his insulin use and storage of medications and diet. And then she said, tell me what kind of shoes you wear, what job do you have, and how far do you have to walk to work? And after he left, I said, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. That's fabulous. Those are questions that are not routinely asked by nurses in the United States. And she said, inside, outside. And I said, what's inside, outside? And she looked at me like I had just said, who's Florence Nightingale? It's so foundational to how they practice down there. And she explained it this way. She said, in Cuba, we're taught that you see the human being and you need to consider everything that's going on inside of them. So all the pulmonary system, the respiratory system, renal system, all cellular structures, gas exchange, etc. But then you move outside. Everything is all one continuous whole to who is this person? What's their family situation or their housing situation? What's the stability of their community? Do they have a history of serving in war? Do they have a history of immigration? Do they speak the dominant language? How are they at risk for environmental changes, at risk for disasters, etc.? The whole thing is the human being, the whole thing. And that's where I think we need to move, is this inside-outside concept of everything's that interconnected. And you can't do health if you only think about inside. You can't do health if you're only practicing illness medicine. You have to be practicing way out on what's this context of this being, both now and in the future, and even into future generations. How do we tee up future generations to have the best odds at survival possible? And that's the way nurses think. We think in terms of this integrated whole systems thinking. Sometimes nurses forget. They might be controlled by electronic health records that maybe make them focus on one little branch of the work they're doing. But please, folks, don't forget the rest. The rest is where health occurs.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful story. And it embodies the nurse, right? Deborah and I both we're very passionate.
It's a reminder. I say, is this something new for nurses? No, it isn't. It's a reminder of who you are and calling you to your higher self. You've been told for too long what a nurse is and who a nurse is. And we want to liberate you and say, no, step into your calling, embrace your calling, and be part of this great transformation that we're calling forward.
That's amazing. I love it. The only last question maybe you could answer is, if you had a magic wand, what would the future look like for nurses in planetary health and lifestyle medicine, or even just all of us in healthcare in this regard?
I think, as I mentioned, I think the Sao Paulo Declaration gives us a really good glimmer of what a healthy, functioning health sector could look like. I invite people to turn to that and really use that as our blueprint for where we're going. My magic wand would say, we're going to party. We're going to be a joyful system. We're going to celebrate nature and love nature. We're going to love our children. We're not going to be fearful because we will have our basic needs met. We will be living in communities, so we're not haves versus have-nots and these gross disparities that we're seeing. People will feel secure. They will know that when they need something, the community is there to meet their needs. Yes, that's way out there, but that's what I would be looking for in an optimal setting, is a great deal of joy and laughter.
I love that. I love joy and laughter. It's the best. Anything else that you want to share that we haven't asked you that you think is important for us to know right now?
I would just say join the movement. We're launching our Center for Planetary Health and Environmental Justice at the School of Nursing at the University of Minnesota this month, and we're drawing people who want to take this on and feel called to this type of work. So join us either at the university or the Planetary Health Alliance or Nursing for Planetary Health, but come and find your people so you don't feel alone.
I love that. And would that be nurses at every level of education? Or I know you do every level. Okay. All right. Love that. Thank you so much for your time. We know you have to go do great things you're doing. So we really appreciate the time that you have taken to spend with us and all of the wisdom that you have shared in such a very beautiful way.
And thank you for the work that you're doing. We only move ahead when there's good folks like you doing things that like the work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. And I'd just like to also share that so much of what you are doing is re-inspiring nurses with who we already are, and just as you said, you're unapologetic, just getting out there with that. And I think that, Susie, when I think about what we're trying to do, it really is about that. It's about nurses being able to not listen to what other people are telling them what they can do and cannot do with their patients, but actually really knowing from what our founding documents are and going out there and doing it unapologetically, remembering and reimagining for this time and the future time.
All right. Thank you so much.